Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel for those of you who are returning. If you're new here visiting for the first time, I'm Anita with Anita by Design, and here on my YouTube channel you will find step-by-step very detailed sew-alongs to help you with your sewing projects. Today we are on skirt number 3 in a 4-skirt series called Sewing Skirts with Anita. If you are new to sewing, if you are a brand new beginner, you've never sewn anything before, I'm going to highly recommend that you check out my beginner's sewing course here on the YouTube channel before joining this sew along. This sew along assumes that you have basic sewing knowledge already because I will not be demonstrating every single detail of sewing this pattern together. So you need to have some sewing experience. Today we are sewing McCall's 8004. This is a straight skirt with a lining, and I'm sewing view C, which has a belt. If you would like to sew views A or B, you can still follow along with the steps that I will be demonstrating today. Skirt A has a tucked waistband. So if you are sewing that view, then you will need to follow your instruction guide to sew that waistband together because I won't be demonstrating it. The only difference between the 3 skirts is, of course, A has a tucked waistband, and then all of the skirts are different lengths. For skirts A and B, there are only 3 pattern pieces. So this is a very easy skirt to sew, even though we're installing a lining. For skirt C, view C, there are 6 pattern pieces, but we will only be using 5 of them. We will not be using piece number 6. Pattern alterations. This skirt is available, this pattern is available in sizes 6 through 22. If you are outside of that size range, then I highly recommend checking out BluPrint, and there is a link in the description box below. It's a membership website, and they have all kinds of sewing classes where you can learn different techniques. And they have one class called Create Any Size, and it teaches you how to alter patterns to fit your body. There are links in the description box below where you can check out that site. And if you don't want to join as a member, they do have individual classes, and this one happens to be one of the classes that they offer. It's a DVD that you receive, and I've linked in the description box below for that also. Also, I would like to recommend Pattern Fitting with Confidence. This book is by Nancy Zeman, and she teaches you how to alter your patterns using the pivot and slide method. And it's very easy. She gives all the steps in her book, so you can check out that book too if you'd like to learn how to alter your patterns. Fabric choices. This skirt calls for a bottom weight fabric, and on the back of the envelope, they have suggestions like faux leather, cotton blends, satin, and wool blends. I would also recommend denim or corduroy. I think those would make nice options too. And for your lining, you're going to choose a fabric or a lining that is compatible with your fabric. You don't have to necessarily choose a lining that is specifically designed for linings or exclusive lining fabrics. You can choose any type of fabric that will be compatible with your skirt. Now, the lining that we will be inserting into our skirt is a free hanging lining. That means we will be attaching it at the waist, but we will be hemming it separately. Let's see, interfacing. You're going to need to purchase 2 different types of interfacing. You need one that is the weight of your fabric. So if you're using a medium weight denim, then you're going to need to use a medium weight interfacing. You're going to be interfacing your waistband and the zipper area on the skirt. Then for the belt, I will not be following the instructions that come along with the pattern guide. I'm going to be using interfacing, and I'm using Pellon Craft Fuse 808 to create the belt. So go ahead and purchase that, and I will show you how to put your belt together. Pre-treat your fabric. and your lining according to the manufacturer's instructions. If you are purchasing your fabric in store, then the care instructions are found on the bolt, on the end of the bolt where the fabric is wrapped around. If you are purchasing your fabric online, then you should be able to find the care instructions along with the description of the fabric. For notions, we're going to need thread, a 7-inch invisible zipper, 2 hook and bar closures. Our waistband is an overlapping waistband, and the hook and bar closure is appropriate for that type of waistband construction. You're also going to need a 1/4-inch eyelet kit. We need 4 eyelets for our belt. So make sure you purchase a kit, and the kit will come with the tool that you use to attach the eyelets to the belt. Then you're going to need a belt buckle, a 2-inch belt buckle. If you can't find one at your local fabric store or online, then I recommend going to the thrift store. This is what I did. I took my tape measure with me, and I measured the bar in the center of the buckle that the prong is attached to. And when you find one that is 2 inches, that's the one you want to purchase. If your belt buckle that you purchase is not in good shape, then you can always repair it by spray painting it. I purchased Krylon looking glass in silver and just sprayed my belt buckle, and it looks like brand new. There are lots of different finishes and colors to choose from. You can just purchase it from your local hardware store, or you can purchase it online. I think that is it. Yes, we are ready to sew, so let's get started. First, I want to show you how we're going to cut our lining differently than our fashion fabric. We're looking at the skirt back piece, and you'll notice all of these lines. You're going to transfer, if you're sewing views B and C, you're going to transfer this line, the stitching line, and then this long fold line onto your fashion fabric and your lining. Then for your lining only, you're going to transfer this line. And after you have transferred this line onto your lining, for the left piece only, the left back lining, you're going to use this line to cut away the fabric. Okay? And then at the bottom, at the hem, you're going to use this line, the second line from the edge, to cut your lining. So for your fashion fabric, this bottom line, the edge, that's your cutting line. And then the next line up, this is your cutting line for your lining, because your lining needs to be shorter than your fashion fabric. Then for the skirt front, I want to show you the pleats, or the pleat marks. You will notice that there are small circles and large circles. So depending on which line you're cutting, you want to make sure that you actually transfer a small circle and a large circle so that you know which direction you're going to fold and overlap your fabric when you're creating the pleat. Okay, let's begin our prep work, starting with interfacing. I have interfaced the waistband, and you will notice I interfaced all the way to the edges. If you're using a thick fabric like a wool, then you will need to trim away 5/8 of an inch of your interfacing before applying it so that you don't have excessive bulkiness within the seam allowances. After you have interfaced your waistband, then go ahead and transfer your markings onto the interfacing so that you will be able to see it when you go to match the pieces to the waistband. After you are done interfacing your waistband, then you're going to fold over 5/8 of an inch on the unnotched edge of your waistband, and you're going to press that down. Then you're going to cut away until you have 3/8 of an inch left. So let's go over 1/4 of an inch, and you're going to measure down from the fold to 3/8 of an inch, and then you're going to take your scissors and then just cut away the excess. If you need to draw a line to measure off that 1/4 inch all the way down, then go ahead and do that. You want to interface your belt, and you have two identical pieces that you will need to interface. And this time I did use a thicker interfacing, but I also left it applied it all the way to the edge because I do want that thickness. When you get ready to cut out your pattern, transfer these markings on your belt onto the right side of your fabric. If you forget to do that, then I want to show you how you can still do it afterwards without using the pattern piece. I just like to take a straight pin and push it through the marking, and using my disappearing ink pen, or you can use a fabric pencil, I will go ahead and just make that mark. Then I'll remove the pen and color it in. We're also going to interface the zipper area on our skirt backs on your fashion fabric only. I have measured a strip of interfacing 7 inches long and 3/4 of an inch wide. And I have interfaced 5/8 of an inch down from the top edge of the skirt all the way down to the marking where the zipper stop will be placed. After you have prepared the zipper area for your skirt backs, then take the skirt back the right side only, and you're going to prepare the extension by folding over 5/8 of an inch and pressing that down onto the wrong side of your fabric. So from the right side, you're going to have a nice neat fold, and this is on the right back only. Make sure that you do the same thing for the lining on the right back. Fold over 5/8 of an inch and press it down. Next, we're going to prepare our invisible zipper. When you receive the zipper, the teeth will be curled over onto the back of the tape. You're just going to press the teeth flat with your iron, making sure not to press onto the teeth because they're plastic. All right, that's all we need to do for prep work. Now we are ready to start sewing the skirt. Okay, let's prepare our carriers for the skirt. We're looking at carrier piece number 5, and I want you to take it and fold it with the right sides together, and we're going to pin Then I want you to go to your sewing machine, and you're going to sew a 3/8 inch seam from one edge or from one end all the way down to the other. And I'm going to allow you to do that on your own, and then meet me back here. After you have sewn in your 3/8 inch seam, then you're going to cut away about half of your seam allowance. Now you go ahead and turn your tube right side out, and then we'll cut the carriers apart. Okay, after you have turned your tube right side out, go to your pressing station and give it a nice flat press, making sure that the seam line is on one edge and the fold is on the other. Then we're going to cut our tube apart to create the carriers. We need 4 carriers measuring 4 1/4 inch each. So with your seam gauge guide at the 4 1/4 inch mark, you're going to measure from the edge and mark, and from that mark you're going to make your next mark and continue doing that all the way to the end, making 4 carriers. Okay, then we're going to take our scissors and just cut those apart at the markings. After you have cut apart your carriers, then go to your pressing station, and using your seam gauge, fold over 5/8 of an inch on one end of each carrier and press it into place. Then you can set these aside, and they'll be ready when it's time to attach them to the waistband. I want you to grab your skirt backs and go ahead and sew in your dart. I've already done it. I will not be demonstrating that. For those of you who have basic sewing knowledge, you already know how to complete this step. So sew in your darts on both back pieces for your fashion fabric and your lining fabric. Okay, we're going to sew in the pleats on the skirt front. I've already done one for you. So you should have traced the lines and a large circle and a small circle, or a large X and a small X. You're going to crease the line where your large circle is and fold it over to the line where the small circle is. And then we're going to pin in place. Using another pin, locate the dots at the end of your pleat and then go ahead and insert a pin. Okay, with your machine set for a basting stitch, we're going to baste from the top edge down to where this second pin is, right along the edge of the fold. Then we're going to go ahead and baste across the top edge, making sure that the raw edges are even along the top. I'm going to do the same thing with the other pleat. Then you need to go to your pressing station and press your pleats flat. Make sure you do the same thing with your lining. Now we're going to sew our skirt backs together. So place your two skirt backs with the right sides facing each other and making sure that your raw edges are even. Pin those into place. Okay, from the top edge of the skirt down to the first mark where the interfacing ends, I'm going to be sewing in a basting stitch. This is actually a step you can skip and you can just press open 5/8 of an inch after we sew in the regular stitch down to the next mark. The reason I do it this way is because for me it's just a quicker way to press open that seam allowance without having to use my seam gauge to measure and press open. It is an extra step because I go back and remove the basting stitches before inserting the zipper. So you choose which way you want to do it. So we're going to start with a basting stitch. And then when I get to that mark, I'm going to set my machine for a regular stitch, 2.5 length, and then I'm going to sew down to the next mark, and I'm going to begin and end with a back stitch. Now you're going to go to your pressing station and press this seam open. If you have basted the top part closed, then press it open, and then after you do that you will remove your basting stitches. Okay, if not, go ahead and measure off 5/8 of an inch and press it open as you press the rest of the seam allowance open, and then we will come back here and insert our zipper. Okay, I have pressed my seam allowances open and I've removed the basting stitch from the top edge where the zipper is going to be inserted. Now to insert the zipper, I'm going to take this side of the skirt and I'm going to just open it flat. So the right side is facing up. I'm going to take the zipper tape and place the zipper with the right side facing down onto the fold of the fabric with the teeth facing the fold, okay? And I'm just going to pin into place. Making sure that you keep the teeth of the zipper right on the fold of the fabric. And I insert the tip of the pin back down into the zipper tape. And that's to keep from poking myself when I'm removing the pins. Okay. I'm going to go all the way, pin all the way down to where the stitching starts here. Okay, then we're going to go to the machine and insert a stitch. First, I'm going to remove the all-purpose foot J from my Baby Lock Soprano and replace it with the zipper foot. Then I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to insert it. Oops, I need to insert my zipper foot on the other side. Okay. And we're going to just go ahead and sew in that stitch. I'm going to backstitch. Make sure that you stop about 1/2 inch to 1 inch before you reach this closed stitching here. That way you will be able to turn your zipper out to the right side and then go and sew the other side. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to place your zipper tape or teeth along the fold on this side, pin it and sew it into place. Okay, I have the zipper inserted. Now I'm going to take my zipper pull and I'm going to push it through the opening and I'm going to pull to close the zipper. And then I'm going to turn it over to the right to finish it off. Over to the right side and just close it up and we have our invisible zipper installed. Now turn it back over to the wrong side. I have all this flap left over that I don't need. I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to insert the zipper extension, the rest of this, into the machine, and I'm going to do a zigzag stitch right over the teeth. Okay, I have my zipper tape inserted and I have my machine set for a zigzag stitch. I have released the feed dogs so that the zipper stays in place and that the feed dogs don't feed it through the machine because I just want a bar tack right across those teeth. I'm going to take my hand wheel and turn it to make sure that I'm clearing the teeth and that the needle is falling on both sides of the zipper or the teeth rather than onto the teeth. And it looks like I'm falling, so I'm going to go ahead and sew a bar tack. Okay. And there's what I have. And then I will cut away the excess. Okay. Now we need to close up the small opening that we left here in the skirt back. So let's take this out and we're going to take the seam allowance and we're going to fold it back flat and you will see we have a small opening here. So what I'm going to do is keeping that folded flat, and I'm going to start from the bottom where this stitching ends, and then you see where the stitching ends, I'm going to sew right up to where this stitching begins. And I'm not going to meet it exactly, it's going to be just a little bit behind that stitching. Use my turning hand wheel. Okay, let's go ahead and stitch. And I'm beginning and ending with a back stitch. Okay, so we've closed up that stitching, and then let's turn it to the right side and see what it looks like. It's pretty good. You pull it out so that you can see it. This is where the zipper ends, and that's where we closed up that opening. Okay, now that we have installed the zipper, let's go down to the bottom of the skirt and prepare the vent. Okay, we're going to work on the side where we folded over the seam allowance. And this is the right back. So let's turn it this way. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut a slit right here in the corner where that diagonal starts so that we can fold this side open. So take your scissors and just snip so that we can open that. I'm going to turn it back. Now we'll be able to fold this over. Okay, now making sure that this side is folded along the fold line that we traced onto the wrong side. Fold it over all the way down to the bottom. Making sure that it's nice and even. And then we're going to take this side and fold it over onto the other extension, making sure that the raw edges are even. Now what we're going to do is we need to pin this in place because we're going to sew a stitch to hold this down. So I'm going to take a pin, and if we open this out, you will see the stitching line here. And this is where we need to place our first pin so that we will know where the stitching line will end, because we're going to be sewing from the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and place this pin right there to let me know where it ends. And then I'm going to place another pin just to hold this top section in place. So we're going to go to the sewing machine, and from the right side, we're going to sew. This is where the stitching ends for the vent. We're going to sew from that point straight down to where this pin ends, and that's going to hold our the flap in place. Okay, let's go to the sewing machine. Okay, I have transferred the one pin onto the right side of the fabric, and I need to do the same thing with the other one, and I want to show you how I do it. I just take another pin and insert it right at the point where that pin starts, where I need to stop my stitching, and then I'll go under and remove the other pin. That way I know where the stitching ends. Now I'm going to turn it diagonally because we need to stitch from this point where the stitching stops here all the way down to where this pin is placed. Okay, so let's sew it at an angle. If you would like, it will be a lot easier to transfer that line onto the right side of the fabric. Especially if you are a brand new beginner, you can go ahead and transfer this line from the wrong side onto the right side of the fabric. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and line that up, and you can use your needle to find the spot where you're beginning. Okay, and then we're going to just sew straight down. Now you want to go to the pressing station and give this a nice flat press all the way down to the edge, making sure that your hem, that the edge of the skirt at the bottom is even. So make sure you fold that over until it's even and then give it a nice flat press. Next, we will sew together the skirt front and back. So we're going to take the front and back and place them together with the right sides facing and match your notches near the top edge of the skirt and pin into place. Then continue pinning all the way down the length of the skirt, and we're going to go to the sewing machine. You want to do the same thing on the other side, then go to your pressing station and press your seam allowances open. Next, we need to reinforce the corner on the left back of the lining, right where we cut away the extra fabric on the extension. So grab your left piece, and what I have done is I've measured in 5/8 of an inch from the edge to this point, and then from there I've measured down 1 inch on both ends, and this is the area that we're going to reinforce. So place your fabric under on the 5/8 inch seam line, and I've reduced my stitch length to a 2.0. And when you hit that mark, we're going to raise the presser foot and pivot and continue down to the next dot. Okay. Oops, didn't mean to backstitch. After you have reinforced the area, you're going to take your scissors and we need to clip over to that corner without cutting through the thread. Okay. After you have reinforced the corner on your left back, go to your pressing station and press over 5/8 of an inch on both edges. After you have done that, we're going to pin our back pieces together. So grab your right back and we're going to start at the top of the skirt. Place the left back on top of the right back with the right sides facing. And we're going to start with the notches and we're going to pin that together. Then we're going to go down to the area where we have cut away the extension. And what you want to do is make sure that the fold on the left back meets the corner on the right back where the extension is, and pin that into place. Okay, I'm starting with a basting stitch. Then I'm going to change my stitch to a 2.5. Then I'm going to continue. I'm going to stop right where that crease meets at the corner and backstitch. And you're going to need to clip the right back extension up to the stitching so that it will lie flat when you press the seam open above the extension. So right here at the corner, clip over to the stitching without going through your stitches, and then you will go and press the seams open. After you have pressed open the seam allowances and pressed over the extension on the fold line, this is what it should look like. And I've also opened up the stitches in my zipper area. Now you will go ahead and sew your skirt, your lining front and back together the same way you did with your fashion fabric. Now we're ready to attach the lining to the skirt at the waist, starting with the zipper area. I have inserted my lining inside the skirt with the right sides facing. And then I've taped or pinned the lining to the seam allowance. So the lining seam allowance has been pinned to the fashion fabric seam allowance. And I'm going to show you how I did that. So I'm opening out the seam allowance where the zipper is installed, and I'm going to open out the lining seam allowance, and then we're going to just pin those together. Let me turn it here. Lining up the raw edges, we're going to pin that together. With the zipper foot attached, I'm going to sew to the right of the zipper teeth. I fill my zipper teeth through the lining right here, and I'm going to sew the lining onto the fashion fabric on the right side. And I'm going to sew down as far as I can go. And that's as far as I can go. I'm going to backstitch. You're going to do the same thing on the other side, and then we're going to turn the lining to the inside of the skirt. Now that we have the lining attached to the zipper area, we're going to turn the lining to the inside of the skirt. So reach through and pull your lining out. And then you're going to stuff it to the inside of your skirt with the wrong sides facing. And what you will notice is that we have a nice clean finish here on our zipper where the lining is attached. Okay, and then you can go to your pressing station and press that, but I'm going to show you how we're going to pin our lining to the waistline. Okay, starting with one side of your skirt, you're going to match your darts on the back and pin into place. Then match your side seams and pin into place. Make sure you have pressed your seams open on the skirt. Then match your pleats on the front, and continue pinning all the way around the skirt until you reach the other side. Okay, we're going to attach the lining to the fashion fabric with a basting stitch. Now with the skirt turned right side out, we're going to attach our carriers to the waist. Take one of your carriers and with the straight edge, you're going to center it over. I'm starting on the back and I'm centering it over the dart and pinning into place. Then on the front, you want to center your carrier over your pleat. So I'm placing mine even with that fold on the right side of the pleat. Now when you pin your carrier, make sure you have it pinned to where the fold on the other end is facing inside, because when we attach the waistband, we're going to fold the carrier up. Next, we're going to baste the carriers in place onto the skirt. So take your seam guide and you're going to measure 1/2 inch down from the stitching line and make a mark. And that's the stitching line for attaching your carrier or basting your carrier onto the skirt. Okay, you want to go and do that with all 4 carriers. Now we're going to attach the waistband to the skirt on top of the carriers, starting at the notches. So match your notches on the waistband to the notches on the skirt and pin into place. Then you're going to match the dot that you traced onto the waistband with the side seam of your skirt. Then go over to the end and you're going to match the dot on the end of your waistband with the fold on the end of your skirt. So your waistband should hang over just a tad bit. Then you can go back in between and pin, and I'm going to be pinning right over the carriers. Now we're going to go to the sewing machine and attach the waistband. Insert your fabric into the machine where you transferred the dot onto your waistband. Begin with a back stitch, then sew all the way over to the other end of your waistband and make sure that you end with a back stitch. After that, you're going to cut away 1/2 of the seam allowance on your waistband. Go to your pressing station and press your seam allowance toward the waistband. Then meet me back at the machine and I'll show you how we're going to finish off the waistband. Now with your waistband right side facing up, we're going to fold the waistband in half, making sure that the raw edges are even. And then we're going to go ahead and pin that into place. Then we're going to insert a straight stitch from the fold all the way down to the edge, making sure that we're sewing just outside of those zipper teeth. Next, you're going to turn your waistband right side out, and using your point turner, you're going to insert it into the waistband and push out that corner until you get a nice sharp corner. Then you're going to go to your pressing station and give it a nice flat press. After you have pressed your waistband, then you will use a hand needle and thread to sew your waistband down onto the skirt. To finish off the carriers on your waistband, you're going to fold the carrier up onto the waistband, making sure that the fold on your carrier is even with the fold on your waistband, and then pin it into place. Then we're going to insert an edge stitch right along the edge of the fold, making sure that the carriers are even, and we're going to sew the carrier down using a regular stitch at a 2.5 length. We're going to begin and end with a back stitch to secure the carrier onto the skirt. And you're going to do the same thing with the other 3 carriers, and this is what it will look like when you're done. After you are done with your waistband, you will attach the hook and bar closures. The bars will be placed on the side with the extension and your hooks on the other side. So let's zip up our skirt and close it. And there you have it. Now we're going to work on the hem area and the vent of our skirt. You will notice that I have finished off the raw edge of the bottom of my skirt with a serge. You can use your serger to finish off your raw edge, or you can use a zigzag stitch on your regular machine. If you have an overcast stitch function on your regular machine, you can use that, or you can fold it over and insert a narrow hem. Now moving over to the vent area, on the section where we have the extension, on the side with the extension, you're going to take your seam guide and you're going to measure up 2.5 inches from the bottom of the skirt. Then you're going to mark that point with your marker and fold over from the bottom of the skirt. You're going to fold over 5/8 of an inch. Then you're going to continue folding up to the point, tapering off to nothing when you reach that point. And this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have a diagonal fold. Then working on the other side of the skirt, you're going to fold up a 1.25 inch hem with the right side spacing and enter a straight stitch right along that fold where we pressed in earlier. Then turn the fold or the hem right side out. Using your point turner, you're going to push out that corner until you have a nice sharp point. And this is what it will look like from the front. And then on the back side, we have a nice finished hem. And once we finish the other side, we will press it into place and sew it down. Now we're going to take this self-facing and fold it to the outside of the skirt with the right side spacing, and we're folding right along the line that we traced. And then we're going to pin that down, making sure that the edges are even at the bottom. Then we're going to sew 1.25 inch up from the bottom hem, or from the bottom edge of the skirt. Don't know why my thread is, let's move this out of the way. Okay, then we're going to go in and trim away this first layer of fabric. We're going to trim away the seam allowance. Then we're going to turn it right side, or turn it in. I'm going to use a point turner to push out that corner. And there we have it on the right side. And this is what it should look like on the inside. Okay. Now you're going to go to your pressing station and you're going to press your hem in place all the way around. And after that, you will go ahead and use a hand needle and thread and whip stitch your hem into place. Unless you want to sew your hem down with a machine stitch, you can do that too. I'm going to hand stitch mine. Okay, this next step you can skip if you'd like. What I'm going to do is right where we have stitched in the diagonal line to hold the extension in place, I'm going to continue the stitching from that point all the way down to the bottom hem of the skirt, and that's to hold this in place so that it's not flapping around inside the skirt. Okay. To prepare the lining, you're going to fold up and press in a 1 1/4 inch hem and use the same method that we used on the fashion fabric for the side with the extension. And then for the other side, you're just going to fold it up 1/4 inch, and then we're just going to sew it into place. Okay. Then you can give that a nice flat press. Now we're going to sew the belt together. So place your 2 belt pieces with the right sides facing and pin all the way around. Then we're going to go to the machine and sew a straight stitch around the length of the belt, but we're going to leave this short end open where the fold line and the dot is for the prong of the belt buckle. Next, you want to trim off your seam allowances, starting with the corners. You're going to cut at a diagonal. Then go around the entire belt and trim off your seam allowance. About half of the seam allowance or a little bit more. All the way around. And then you're going to turn your belt right side out and give it a nice flat press. Now we're going to install the eyelets onto the belt. I used a hole punch to open up my holes. If you don't have a hole punch, you can use scissors. And what you will do is fold your belt in half and then use your scissors to snip right on top of the marking that you made for the hole. Then you're going to set your eyelets. I purchased an eyelet kit that comes with 3 parts. It has the top part of the eyelet, then the metal washer for the back, and then a little plastic washer that goes in between the two. You will need to follow the instructions on the back of your eyelet kit to make sure that you're installing yours the proper way. So for this kit, I am going to take the top part and place it through the hole. And then I'm going to set it on top of the base. And it fits right into there. Then I'm going to take the metal washer and the little plastic washer and put those together. And then I'm going to place that on the back. Then I'm going to take the tool with the notch and place it down into the opening. And then I'm going to hammer that into place, but I'm not going to do it here on screen, on video, because it's really loud. And then our eyelets will be set. So make sure you go ahead and install your eyelets, and then we will install the buckle. Now we're preparing the other end of the belt for the belt buckle. The pattern guide instructs you to cut a snip in the fabric where you marked the hole for the belt prong or the belt buckle prong. I prefer to use a buttonhole because it's quicker and I can avoid hand stitching. So you can use this method if you want, or follow the instructions on the pattern guide to hand sew or cut a snip in your fabric and hand sew. So what I did is, where the marking was, I just measured 5/8 of an inch and centered that measurement over the center of that hole, and then I just created a buttonhole. And then I'm going to open my buttonhole using my favorite tool. This is the buttonhole opener set, and this is in my Amazon store, linked below in the description box. I have already added fray check and let it dry to prevent fraying after I open my buttonhole. So what I'm going to do is just take the blade and just rock back and forth to open up the buttonhole. Okay, from one edge to the other without cutting through the threads. And that is just a really quick way to open up your buttonholes, and it gives you a really clean opening. Okay, so after we've opened the buttonhole, you want to go to the pressing station. Oh, actually, before you do that, you want to baste together, or baste the edge of the belt closed. And then you're going to go to your pressing station and press over 5/8 of an inch on the edge of the belt. And then you're going to fold again along the fold line that we marked on the belt. Next, we're going to attach the belt buckle to the belt. So let's open it out, and then we're going to insert the fabric onto the bar. Then we will push the prong through the opening and fold the fabric over. Then turn it over to the back, and then you're going to use a hand needle and thread to sew the fold down onto the belt. And then on the sides, you can whip stitch the sides closed. And that is it. Our belt is done. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, then please hit the like button. If you would like to see more like this, then I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And after you have subscribed, make sure that you hit the little bell to the right of the subscribe button so that you will receive notifications when new content is posted here to my YouTube channel. I will be sending out information to my private email community to announce the next sew along, our last skirt in this series, with all of the details for you guys. So make sure you keep your eyes open. If you are not part of that community and you would like to be, then there is a link in the description box below. And being a part of that community gives you access to advanced information about the sew alongs and tutorials that I post here. There are also other exclusive benefits to being part of the community. So check out the link below and join me if you like. If you are on Instagram and you will be sewing this skirt, then please use the hashtag sewing with Anita so that I can see what you're doing. I love to share you guys when you're following along with my series. If you are not on Instagram and you like Facebook, then I have a Facebook page also and you can share there. That's about it. As always, remember, when you live in your design, it is from there that God shines. That means when you live according to the way that you have been created, it is from that place that God will use you to bless other people. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.